Hello, Narnach here. Welcome to my build guide for Tukohama's Totemancer. My build for Path of Exile, Atlas of Worlds, patch 2.4 Essence League. Yes, that's a big mouthful. So, Tukohama's Totemancer is a Chieftain Marauder who uses Ancestral Bond to get 2 totems. We use the 4-point Ascendancy keystone Tukohama War's Herald to make the totems taunt on hit, make them fire immune and to cause fire reflection damage when they get hit by mobs. For damage we'll use Righteous Fire on a Spell Totem, we'll use Empire's Grasp Gloves to turn the Shockwave Totem into a monster magnet, and of course we use Searing Bond as a burning cherry on top. As usual, I have a written guide in the video description below, with links to the skill trees, description of all the skills and links I will use, as well as some ideas of items I think will work with the build. I intend to start a fresh new character for the Essence League and level it all the way till maps and see how far we can push it. So the build will likely evolve while I play it, because that's always what happens while I play my builds. So be sure to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on what I do with the build. This build is brought to you thanks to a friendly build challenge by It's the Gofa, a long-time subscriber to my channel. He asked me to do a totem build using Ancestral Bond and Searing Bond. The rest was up to me. Because I haven't done a pure totem build before, I accepted the challenge. It's always nice to play something, especially a build like this that only gets better the more time I put in to develop it. It took me a while to settle on something though. For this build I did more playtesting and research than for any of my previous builds. I think I played for about 2 weeks in the evenings, just combining skills and working on it, and the build kept getting better and better and better and just more fun and more powerful. So unlike previous build videos, I'll actually start by showing you gameplay of some of the skill combinations I tried before settling on the final skill combination, to give you a bit of an idea of all the things that you could do and why I in the end decided on not going with them. So I hope you'll enjoy watching this. It won't take too long, and eventually we will use our final build setup to defeat Merciless Doresso, just to give you an idea of how the fight could go. So, obviously the build uses the Ancestral Bond keystone. So that gets us a bonus totem, but we no longer do any damage with my own skills. Searing Bond gets its own bonus totem built in, so we get a total of 3 totems, one of which is going to be Searing Bond. So I've done quite a bunch of energy shield based shadows and witches in the past few leagues, so I didn't want to do any of that. So instead I first looked at the Templar, because Ancestral Bond is all the way in the top left of the skill tree, and therefore the Templar was the most obvious choice. The Hierophant is the totem version of the totem ascendancy of the Templar. But once I started looking at the keystones that you have there, I was sorely disappointed. The Ritual of Awakening gets you +2 to maximum totems, but for each totem that you summon you get 8% less damage, and that is something that will stack. So if you get Ancestral Bond plus the Ritual of Awakening plus the Searing Bond, that gets you a total of 5 totems. That's going to reduce your damage by 40%. So effectively you'll be dealing 60% of your damage with each of the 5 totems. So in total you'll do just as much damage as you would with 3 normal totems without the ritual. Kind of defeats the purpose for our build, because Ancestral Bond already gets us 3 totems without any of the penalties. So I decided the Templar wasn't going to be it for us. So next up was the Marauder, and specifically the Chieftain. The Chieftain loves fire and he loves totems, and once I saw Tukohama War's Herald I knew I had found my class. Totems get a 20% chance to taunt on hit. They reflect 8% of their own maximum life as fire damage to nearby enemies when they get hit. They get 50% of my own armor, which makes them very tanky against physical damage. And I initially glossed over another property, and that's they become immune to fire damage. Later on I discovered this was the key to making it work with the Righteous Fire Spell Totem, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's look at what we have now. We have 2 active totems, which we still have to settle on. We have a Searing Bond as a bonus, a 3rd totem. And there's quite a bunch of totems to pick from. So within no time I had about 30 browser tabs open and I was exploring all kinds of different totems and support gems. Having played Earthquake Juggernaut before, I was rather happy with the Ancestral Warchief on my Lacerate Gladiator. I thought about just wielding a big stick and using melee totems like Ancestral Protector and the Ancestral Warchief. For the endgame we could even pick up the Marauder Urqui 2-handed mace for a built-in increased area effect, so we could effectively run around with a 7-link Ancestral Warchief. That sounded pretty darn powerful. But once I started planning for the build, I kinda discovered that the Warchief pulled me in one direction, while the Searing Bond, which was part of the build challenge, pulled me in a different direction. So Searing Bond applies burning, which is fire damage applied over time. You scale it by boosting your totem damage, by boosting fire damage, by boosting burning damage, elemental damage and damage over time. It doesn't actually hit, so it doesn't get the taunt effect. The Ancestral Warchief does just about everything that's opposite. So it uses your own weapon as a basis for its attack damage, so you want to equip a very strong melee weapon. So a 2-handed mace is pretty good for that. But you want to scale your physical damage, your melee damage, your mace damage, your 2-handed weapon damage. And on top of that it also benefits from totem damage, area of effect damage, area of effect radius and attack speed. So that's 2 completely different things. The totem damage is the only link between the 2. So it's almost like you take 2 good builds, you smush them together and you get something kind of mediocre in the middle. If you would disregard Warchief as a damage dealer and focus on Tukohama's taunt and reflect abilities, then you can see it working better. Warchief hits in an area, taunts 20% of the mobs it hits, and they approach it and hit the totem. Boom, they get hit for 8% of the totem's maximum life. And because it is an area of effect reflection, all the other mobs that are standing close also take damage. So if you put it down next to a caster and some melee mobs approach it, the caster takes damage from the melee mobs getting hit. So there's an interesting synergy going there, and there's some interesting placement going on. On top of that, of course, the Warchief has a big stick and it hits things, so that really helps. But basically it's a glorified Decoy Totem that has an unreliable taunt, because it only taunts 20% of the times. So let's get started on some gameplay. For our first demo, we'll be playing with the Warchief and the Searing Bond. And as you can see, it actually works pretty darn well. Searing Bond does quite some damage, and you have a Warchief that's just smashing things. The thing is though, if there's quite a bunch of monsters, you could make an argument that this is not the fastest build in the world. But you got the Warchief that is taunting things, sorta, kinda, it's not completely reliable, but it does the trick. But keep in mind, this was the very first idea I had. So I wasn't overly happy with that, because in the end, the Warchief, it's a glorified Decoy Totem, so why not just use the Decoy Totem itself? So, if you use the Decoy Totem, then it means you're no longer relying on your weapon for physical damage. So you could switch to something else that will boost your elemental damage. So for example, you do pick a shield and a scepter. Our second arena, we still have Searing Bond just doing damage, but we just pick a standard Decoy Totem. You got a Decoy Totem, you got some Searing Bond, mobs get attracted to it and you burn them to a crisp with Searing Bond. When we're focused, you only have 1 source of damage rather than 2, and you really know where the monsters are, because Decoy Totem is utterly reliable. It always attracts monsters. Especially in a map like this, where you know where monsters are gonna spawn, or you can reasonably reliably burn them. Well, Decoy Totem itself it's okay. If you rely on a Tukohama War's Herald for the reflection, you see it actually killing things. This is just the damage reflection kicking in, and it works better on regular mobs here. They kind of suicide themselves on the totem. More powerful mobs and ranged mobs, yeah, you're not gonna kill them with damage reflection, but of course that's why you got Searing Bond. And as you see, that works reasonably well. Now, Searing Bond it's okay, but by itself it's just, it doesn't feel powerful enough for maps. Well, for regular mobs it's okay, but for rares, no, it's just not gonna cut it. So that's why we have another innovation. Searing Bond and Decoy Totem by themselves weren't enough. They were just lacking in damage. And that's when it hit on me. We have Righteous Fire. Righteous Fire is amazing in terms of damage output. It burns monsters for more damage per second than Searing Bond. And the cool thing is, you can stack them. So Righteous Fire does damage over time, Searing Bond does damage over time. Righteous Fire plus Searing Bond does even more damage over time. But you know what the fun thing is? If you put down a Decoy Totem, that's gonna attract mobs. Then you put a Searing Bond, Righteous Fire next to it, and that's gonna burn the mobs that get attracted to it. And then you have Searing Bond to deal with those pesky ranged attackers. Shockwave Totem with Empire's Grasp gloves results in a Shockwave Totem that doesn't push monsters aside, it actually pulls them towards itself. If you combine that with Righteous Fire, you have your oven that burns things to a crisp, and you have your other totem, your Shockwave Totem, that pulls things towards itself. So even if mobs are ranged and don't really want to get near your Decoy Totem because they're likely to shoot the Decoy Totem, they'll just get pulled in, and they will just get burned to a cinder. And the nice thing is you can add your Searing Bond on top of everything else in order to do even more burning damage. It's a great amount of fun, and it is a rather potent combination. So that's what we settled on. We have a Shockwave Totem to pull monsters in and do a fair amount of damage over time itself, or damage per hit. Then we have Righteous Fire as just a really focused source of damage, and we have Searing Bond for even more damage over time. And I figured Merciless Duresso, he is no slouch. Yes, this really is merciless. He's no slouch. So I was actually surprised just how comfortable I was doing this. And I hope that demonstrates to you just how much potential there is for this build. And keep in mind, most of the gems I have are about level 15, 16. No, this is not level 20 gems. There's not 20 quality gems. This is just a former juggernaut that I equipped with a bunch of gems and then play tested around with for a bit. So most of the gems are now between 16 and 18. Totems, especially damage dealing totems, they scale with level. So the higher level versions are going to be even more powerful. So Duresso is not really willing to play ball here. Okay, ew. Get over here. Come on. If you remember my previous playthroughs of the Duresso fight, you know that, well, he hurts a lot, and most of the time I run around a lot and end up taking a damage quite a bit. Here, he is mostly occupied with the totems, I am tanking things quite well. And he is taking damage pretty well. And I'm actually approaching this in a more aggressive manner. And that works even better than running around. So that's the trick. I mean, we are running around with a Determination aura, which also affects our totems. And because via Tukohama War's Herald, the totems get 50% of our own armor. If we run around with Determination, Determination is going to boost the totem's armor as well. And right now, it boosts it by nearly 50%. So they get 50% of my armor. And in turn, I boost them by another 50%. So basically, they get 3/4 of my armor. I currently have 17,000 armor. That's with just mediocre gear, I'd say. So 15,000 armor here. We got a Joffrey's Crest, which is pretty decent actually. It helps Righteous Fire. We want to have 3 links and a red one. Going with an armor energy shield headpiece for that works pretty well to just get the sockets down. If you go with a pure armor, good luck rolling 3 blue sockets on a pure armor or pure strength base. Now the shield, again, it's nothing special. For the weapon, I went with Doriani's Catalyst, but any scepter will have up to 40% increased elemental damage as an implicit modifier. And no, this one just has 87% increased elemental damage, which is a really nice bonus. But if you craft it well, you can probably get something that's like 3/4 as well, and it's not going to cost you all that much. For our gloves, Empire's Grasp, Socketed Gems are supported by level 10 knockback. It gets a ton of bonus armor and knockback direction is reversed. This is what turns the Shockwave Totem from something that pushes monsters away into something that sucks them in. This is our monster magnet. So we cast the monster magnet, we put Righteous Fire next to it, and then we have the Searing Bond to just link everything together. And you can run around and catch monsters in your web. While leveling, you'll probably pick up a Flame Totem, because Righteous Fire without the Tukohama War's Herald is not gonna be all that useful. So let's have a look at the skill tree. We are a Chieftain. And the interesting thing is that you only need 4 points in order to make this build. Everything else is a bonus. So if you defeat Izaro on Cruel, you are set in terms of ascendancy points. Everything else is just a bonus. The reason for that is because you want Tukohama War's Herald. Makes your totems immune to fire damage, gives them 50% of your armor, makes them taunt things on hit, well 20% chance at least, and it makes them reflect 8% of their own maximum life as fire damage to nearby enemies when hit. And because it's an AoE damage, it hits quote-unquote innocent bystanders just as well. On the way to Tukohama, on normal, you're gonna pick up Oronkwi Moon's Presence, which helps you deal with monsters. It makes monsters near your totems deal less damage, and because most of the time you're gonna cast a Decoy Totem or you're gonna have a Shockwave Totem that sucks things in, those monsters are going to be nearby and they are going to deal 8% less damage. So that just stacks on top of everything. It's like a tuned down Enfeeble built into your totems, which is pretty cool. Also, the totems take 16% increased physical and fire damage. The fire damage does apply to your burning damage. So your Searing Bond, over here, and your Righteous Fire over here. Burning counts as fire, so because the monsters take more damage, they get boosted, which is really, really nice. On top of that, if you have your Shockwave Totem, the physical damage is gonna scale, and if you have an added fire damage for it, that's gonna scale as well. So monsters near it, they take more damage than is listed. So that's pretty cool. So for Merciless, I decided to take a Tawa Forced Strength, I hope I pronounced that correctly, which gives you more armor, elemental resists, make your skills cheaper to cast, and it increases your strength by 10%. And strength is life. The other ascendancy points for this build, they are not that interesting. If you're not gonna go with Ancestral Bond, the other three is more interesting, but for us, it's not really. So here you get more fire damage and life regen, which is pretty cool. Here you get a chance to ignite, which only applies when you actually hit things. Out of all your skills, your Flame Golem is going to hit things, and your Shockwave Totem is going to hit things. Searing Bond is a damage over time effect that just gets applied, there is no hit. Similarly, Righteous Fire is a damage over time that just gets applied, there is no hit. So you can't ignite things with it. Increased damage against burning enemies. Ignite leads to burning. The interesting thing though, Righteous Fire and Searing Bond, the enemy does count as burning, so you will benefit from that, but it's 35% increased damage, while all the other things help you gain more utility. I mean, Tukohama is built defining in this regard, so for Cruel, normal Cruel, you're gonna go for these. Merciless, no, if you go for defenses, Tawa is good. If you want to pick a more aggressive approach, Nagamahu Flames Advance might not be a bad choice. Uber Labyrinth, Hinukora, literally nothing works for your build, so you can just skip everything. Ramako Sun's Light actually seems to work. When you or your totems kill a burning enemy, because two of your skills they apply burning, it will apply, so 20% chance for you and your totems to each gain an endurance charge. That's actually pretty nice. You gain endurance charges, which helps you tank, and you have a cast when damage taken set up for Immortal Call, which is gonna swallow up all those endurance charges and makes itself last longer. So that's pretty cool. While you have endurance charges, you gain 0.5% of maximum life per charge that's up. On top of that, you can't be ignited, which is just a nice bonus. If you were not playing an Ancestral Bond, you could maybe use this to go with Righteous Fire on yourself. I'm not quite sure, I haven't tested it, but it seems interesting. But for this build, the endurance charges seem like an interesting alternative way to play it. For me, if I ever do the maps Izaro, it's gonna be this one. So, that's enough about ascendancies. Let's have a look at the skill tree itself. This is a level 79 Chieftain, so I've already predefined my path. This is still what you can look forward to. You have some life and chaos over here. Of course, you got Ancestral Bonds over there. You have the Templar area of effect skills, which are pretty useful. Elementalist is nice. There's a little bit of elemental damage, elemental resists up here. There's life here, there's life there, there's regen here, there's more regen over here. Life over here, there's fire damage over here, and some elemental damage, which is pretty good. This little arc is pretty efficient to get in terms of just boosting your damage. Then down here you got combat stamina, which is a life regen. Jewel socket. Jewel sockets allow you to get gems or jewels with increased totem life. And outside of the nodes on the skill tree that boost totem life, this is the only other way of getting totem life. So jewels with totem life, that's basically why you get jewel sockets, to increase totem life and therefore scale your Righteous Fire damage. Totemic Mastery, which all the bonuses. I skipped this one because the attack and casting speed didn't feel as useful as just putting a skill point towards something like getting more life. Ancestral Knowledge for more intelligence. Half of your skills are intelligence based. As a Marauder it's hard to get intelligence, so pick up the nodes where you can. Arsonist, fire damage, life regen, kind of a no-brainer. Barbarism, just more resistances and some life. Down here, Juggernaut, armor and life. Ironwood, just another totem wheel which has some life and damage. And down here, Bloodless for more life. In your starting area, of course, you got the Warrior's Blood, Heart of the Warrior, life, regen, all the good stuff. Life, regen, all the good stuff, and of course the Cyan life wheel. In terms of building this is what I ended up with. while leveling, I picked a different. I would pick a different path. This is a high level character that I respect into this to try different variations of the build. But when leveling, my plan is to start out here, follow the path up, go upside to the side and go up here, and basically take the most direct path you can to Ancestral Bond. Get 2 totems as fast as possible, then round out the wheel over here. Get a Celestial Judgment to boost elemental and fire damage. Get Devotion for some increased life. Ancestral Knowledge for some intelligence, because you will need it to get some of those early support gems that require intelligence. Then down here, Arsonist, some life regen, some fire damage is pretty good. And of course, Totemic Mastery to make your totems powerful early on. So that's going to be step 2, so to say. So step 1, Ancestral Bond. Step 2 is filling in the blanks on the way there. Then step 3, we actually take the starter area of the Juggernaut. We go for all the life, all the armor, the resistances over here. And we path our way up to the side over here. Then we go up, we connect. Once we have this connection, these 5 connecting nodes, we can refund them. And then we can use those points to get towards Ironwood. So there's a little bit of refunding, but it helps you get faster to Ancestral Bond. You will get enough refund points usually to make it pretty easy to do that. So Ironwood gets the nodes here. Then you got Bloodless down here for some extra life. Then let's see, I think next we go up here for Sanctity, Discipline and Training, Elementalist and then Amplify. Just get all of these nice things. You get some life regen, some mana regen and a little bit of life and mana over here. Then up here, Purity and Flesh, it's life and scales resist. So by this point you are in mid Merciless, or now mid Cruel. And then after that you go for Constitution over here and round out the life wheel. In the description below I have a full list of the different steps to take and the different things to do. So while I play through, you will just see me slowly filling in the blanks. Last but certainly not least, let's talk about skills and how we are going to link things together. So I took all the gems out of my gear and just laid them out here so we can just have a look at how we're going to link things. So first of all, Righteous Fire. This is going to be one of our main damage dealers. We're going to link it with Spell Totem Support. So we can actually put it down. We're going to add increased area of effect to make its radius larger and burn more enemies to a crisp. Elemental Focus increases the elemental damage that it deals. Supported skills cannot inflict elemental status ailments. The thing is, we only want to burn them. We are not interested in inflicting the status ailment, we just do the damage. So this is a free way to gain the damage. And finally, if you have a 5 link, increased burning damage support is pretty nice to add to it. Searing Bond works pretty well all by itself actually. The damage scales reasonably well with a level. If you add Elemental Focus to it, similarly to Righteous Fire, it's just going to boost its damage quite a bit. And then as a cherry on top, you can add increased burning damage. If you wish to put an investment into Dexterity, you can also link it with Rapid Decay. It's going to make the totem last a little bit shorter, but it is a damage over time more multiplier, which is gonna work. Searing Bond works with it. Righteous Fire doesn't, which there's some interesting interactions, but Rapid Decay, Righteous Fire doesn't work, Searing Bond does work. But in my case, I figured let's not focus on Dexterity, because you need 111 Dexterity, I think, if you want to get this to level 20. Which is quite an investment, which you could also put towards more life or whatever. Because my choice is I focus my skill tree mostly on defense and use my skill links and my gear for offense. And that works pretty well, because most of the damage scaling you can just do via your support. Finally, Shockwave, which goes into Empire's Grasp. So Shockwave, the knockback is reversed. we want an increased area of effect, faster casting, so it just pulses faster, but also it damages faster, and added fire and damage, so part of the physical damage gets added on top as fire, and because we are massively scaling our fire damage, we actually end up with more fire damage than physical damage, which is interesting. For defense, cast more damage taken with Immortal Call and increased duration. A Flame Golem that you can link with whatever you want. Determination to boost your armor. Flame Dash with faster casting to move about, and especially in the labyrinth and things like that, you can just move over height differences. And Flammability. This is something that you can link with area of effect. Potentially combine it with a curse on hit. An interesting thing that you could try is to take a Shockwave Totem, increased area of effect, and then link it with curse on hit and flammability. So you will sacrifice some damage and some faster casting in order to curse everything with fire vulnerability. Monster resistances are going to be lowered, and then your Searing Bond and your Righteous Fire are going to inflict a lot more damage. So that's a trade-off that you can make. Make the Shockwave Totem itself deal less damage, and make your other totems do more damage. So there you have it, Tukohama's Totemancer. This is going to be my build for the Essence League, and after that the Atlas of Worlds mapping content. What I've played so far, it seems powerful enough to take on maps, and I'm definitely curious to see how far I can push it. As always, I welcome feedback and suggestions. If you have good uniques that might be useful, let me know. If you have different skills that I could maybe have a look at, let me know. If you like this, let me know. Either way, give me some feedback. I always enjoy that. With that said, I'm gonna thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again next episode when we start our journey in the Essence League. Bye bye.